the city of Tshwane was a sea of blue this weekend. The end of cadre deployment, 2 million jobs, 6 million people lifted out of poverty. These are just some of the promises the Democratic Alliance made at their Manifesto launch. The party hosted that launch at the Union Buildings and sent a message that they want to rescue the Union Buildings from the clutches of a corrupt government and restore them to their rightful place. Is it a strong enough message to win over South Africans? The Democratic Alliance's federal chairperson, Dr. Ivan Meyer, joins us now on the line. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Was this manifesto launch the success you had hoped it would be?
Good morning to you and good morning to the listeners. Absolutely, yes. We wanted to send a clear signal, a message of intent that the Union Buildings is the center of political power and the center of the executive seat of government, and that seat is where the Democratic Alliance is aiming at, and that's why we had a significant march from Church Square towards the Union Buildings, because we are now aiming to replace the African National Congress in the executive seat of power. So that was the symbolism, but more deeper than that. The National Treasury is based at Church Square. The National Treasury allocates money every year to every single government department in South Africa, but also to all the state-owned entities. And it also gives bailouts to companies like Eskom, the SABC, and Transnet, and all of that. And that started at the Church Square. We walked towards the Union Buildings because once the National Treasury allocated the money, it is being misappropriated at the Union Buildings by this government through corruption, and it is reported also by the Zondo Commission, but more importantly by the Auditor General. The Auditor General every year says the money that has been allocated are being misappropriated, and that happens in the Union Buildings, and we march there to send a signal that this is the ANC's eviction notice.
I suppose it's, typical of any political party to make promises in an election cycle, but critics will say much of the promises you've made in your manifesto are not convincing and not feasible.
Well, that is exactly what this is not. You use the word promises. We have moved away from that in the manifesto design. This manifesto is based on science, research, and evidence. So we are not having a manifesto of promises, we have a manifesto of commitments. Everything in our manifesto has been tested, piloted, budgeted for. So this is not a matter of making promises.
Let's take you up on a couple of the commitments, as you rather prefer to call them. For example, the energy crisis and water issues. Those, no matter how you dice it, are going to take years to resolve. Those are not things you're going to be able to change overnight.
Oh, absolutely, because the ANC has mismanaged South Africa for the last 30 years. So anybody that think you can do this overnight is fooling the South African citizens. So we're not making that promises. We understand that the ANC mismanagement over 30 years will require a massive investment in infrastructure. And so we have looked at what other people are doing, for example, in the city of Cape Town, in the city of George, where we are already busy with the architectural redesign of the load shedding situation. For example, when the country is at load shedding level 4, the Western Cape, here in Cape Town, we are at level 2 because we are generating our own electricity through hydropower. So what we are saying, what we need in South Africa is to have massive infrastructure investment. Secondly, repairs and maintenance must not become a daily thing, but an hourly activity. And so for us in the Western Cape, for example, we believe in what we call infrastructure-led growth. South Africa will need massive infrastructure growth, but particularly in 4 areas.
I guess, without getting into some of that detail, The point I'm making in asking you the question is, whilst of course that is a laudable goal, South Africans aren't going to experience the kind of changes you are promising immediately. But I'll give you another example of what emerged on Saturday, this idea of creating millions of jobs. Was it not your party that mocked Cyril Ramaphosa when he said he would do the same via the ANC. Did you not say at that point, but hang on, that's the job of the private sector? Why is it a promise he can't make when you try to do the same?
Well, if you look at our manifesto is absolutely very clear. What we need to do in terms of creating new jobs, we currently under the ANC has very restrictive labor market policies that restrict it. So what we will do, we will overhaul the restrictive regulations in terms of the Labor Relations Act. We acknowledge that the private sector is creating jobs, and your job is to create an enabling environment. For that, we need to remove those racial targets that is in the employment equity in the preferential procurement. We also believe that we need to promote the principle of non-racialism, and we need to broaden the collective bargaining system. We believe if we do those things, we will be able to create 2 million jobs. But the massive jobs that we need to create is for the youth, and that's why the Democratic Alliance Manifesto is also making a proposal for a DA Youth Employment Opportunity Certificate. And for us, we want to focus on the youth, those who are on the age between 18 and 35, because 60% of South Africans are there, and we believe the massive opportunity must be in the informal economy, in the small businesses. That's where we want, and we want to exempt the small and medium enterprises from the obligation and to make it cheaper for them in terms of the collective bargaining processes. But nothing is more important for us than to grow the economy to infrastructure-led growth and support especially our township economies, the informal economy. And the biggest investment that this manifesto is towards making people following into the system of vocational training and education, skills training, skills that the economy needs, not skills that government think the economy needs.
Yeah. Dr. Ivan Meyer, how do you say to someone like me that employment equity and the transformation agenda should be removed from government policy when, in fact, I sit in this chair, I'm conducting this interview precisely because of those policies? How do you tell the majority of South Africans that triple BEE must be moved or removed from public procurement policies and tell them that you are still thinking about improving their lot?
Well, we have seen there was research done by the World Bank, and so that research has indicated that poverty has increased over the last 10 years, and that is first proof that triple B, double E has not had the effect that it was intended for. In fact, what we have seen, and this is no reflection on you, I believe that you are there because of your competence. So I don't want to equate your position because of
Sure, but without the transformation agenda, that might not even have arisen.
Well, the transformation agenda that we propose in our manifesto will create broader economic empowerment. If you look at the Human Development Index, under BEE, people have become poorer in terms of measuring the Human Development Index. We believe that the real empowerment...
I'm going to press you on this because I've given
you... I'm answering you. Now, the answer is the best empowerment is through sustainable development goals. The majority of the people in South Africa are black, and if you employ the sustainable development goals, the majority of black people will benefit, not the politically elite that are connected to the ANC.
Dr. Ivan Meyer, I'm saying to you, I'm sitting in this chair in a large sense because of the transformation agenda. Without it, I might not do the job that I do. When you say you want to remove employment equity, how do you convince South Africans like me that we would have the opportunities we have as a result of the transformation agenda?
Well, it is clear that when you employ people on the basis of the Sustainable Development Goals, which is, by the way, a transformation agenda itself. Everybody think that only the way that the ANC implement transformation is the only solution. That is exactly the problem. The World Bank and the United Nations are using all over the world, and the ANC, the South African government, is a signatory to the Sustainable Development Goals. And we say, you empower more people when you use the Sustainable Development Goals agenda, and which is transformation historically marginalized people must be empowered. But what ANC has done with triple B, double E, and employment equity is only benefiting a few politically elite and connected people, and that is all documented in the cadre deployment minutes.
Dr. Ivan Meyer, the Democratic Alliance's federal chairperson. What do you make of that?
Join us.
Let's walk the talk.
This is 702.